There are over 99 different ways a goblin speaks, but only one noise as generic as this one.
Hey gang, just to let you know, you can now use the promo code MTGMudsta, all caps, at flipsidegaming.com and originalmagicart.store. Using the code gets you 10% off orders $10 or more, and you get to help out the channel at the same time. I also want to let you guys know that Flipside Gaming is doing another giveaway for Guilds of Ravnica. If you place an order at flipsidegaming.com between September 3rd and October 7th using the promo code MTGMudsta, you'll be entered to win. We've decided to limit entry as one per person to give everyone a more fair chance. So have fun and good luck. You may have noticed from today's thumbnail that this game doesn't have any blue or green. I want to say this was done intentionally, but it was just a happy coincidence. Bree is back playing Lyzolda and keeps a hand with Spite Bellows, Read the Bones, Smelt, Demonic Tutor, Mountain, Dragonskull Summit, and Bojuka Bog. Dave, who's new to the channel, is playing his Homura deck, keeping Wheel of Fortune, Spine Rock Knoll, 2 Snow-Covered Mountains, Soul Ring, Gauntlet of Power, and Mind's Eye. Mike is playing Olivia, keeping Bloodfell Caves, Blood Crypt, Swamp, Mountain, Leyline of the Void, Ashnod's Altar, and Phyrexian Arena. Ryan is playing his Bruse and Akiri deck, keeping Strip Mine, Plains, New Benalia, Darksteel Citadel, Sunforger, and Commander Sphere. Mike wins the die roll and starts us off. Before anything happens though, Mike gets to put out his leyline and starts his turn. He draws and plays a Bloodfell Caves, gaining 1 life. Ryan plays a tapped New Benalia, scrying 1 and putting it on the bottom. Bree plays a Mountain and passes. Dave plays a tapped Spine Rock Knoll, hiding away a card and passing to Mike. Mike plays a Blood Crypt, having it come in tapped instead of taking 2. Ryan plays a tapped Smoldering Crater and he passes to Bree. Bree plays a Dragonskull Summit and casts Demonic Tutor, going to find a card in her library. Dave plays a Snow-Covered Mountain and he casts a Soul Ring. With nothing else, he passes. Mike plays a Swamp and casts Phyrexian Arena. Ryan plays a Darksteel Citadel and he brings out Akiri. Bree plays a Swamp and casts Curse of Disturbance on Mike. Dave plays a Snow-Covered Mountain and taps out to cast a Gauntlet of Power, naming red as it comes into play. Mike loses 1 on his upkeep to draw from the arena, and then draws for turn before playing a Mountain. He casts a Carrion Feeder, and then a Felwar Stone, and passes to Ryan. Ryan plays a Strip Mine, and he casts Commander Sphere. He swings a Akiri at Mike for 2, and both Bree and Ryan gain a tap zombie token. Bree realizes much to her dismay that her Demonic Tutor is exiled, and taps her Mountain for 2 with a Swamp to cast Read the Bones. She bottoms 1, and then draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Bree then plays a Graven Cairn, and she casts a Bitter Blossom before passing to Dave. Dave plays a Snow-Covered Mountain, he casts a Mind's Eye, and passes to Mike. Mike loses 1 life again to the arena, drawing a card and then draws for turn. And Dave pays 1 to draw with the Mind's Eye trigger as Mike draws for turn. Mike plays a Mountain, and he casts Machias the Unhallowed. Mike also casts a Spawning Pit, and then passes turn. Ryan plays a Plains, and he casts a Sunforger, paying the equip cost to stick it onto Akiri. Moving to combat, Ryan swings a Akiri at Mike, and the zombie at Dave. Mike responds before damage is dealt by sacrificing his Carrion Feeder to the Spawning Pit, which brings back the feeder with a +1/+1 counter thanks to Machias. Mike then takes 7 commander damage, and Dave takes 2, while Bree and Ryan gain another tap zombie token. Bree loses 1 on her upkeep to the Bitter Blossom trigger and gains a fairy token. She then draws for turn, and Dave pays to draw from his Mind's Eye trigger. Bree then evokes her Spite Bellows and has it leave the battlefield trigger deals 6 to Machias. But with the trigger on the stack, Mike sacrifices Machias to the Spawning Pit to put another counter on it. Bree then plays a Bojuka Bog and exiles Mike's graveyard. Moving to combat, Bree swings her zombies at Mike and gains a 3rd tap zombie token, before Mike takes 4. In her second main phase, Bree then smelts Dave's Gauntlet of Power and passes turn. Dave plays another Snow-Covered Mountain as a land for turn, and he casts an Ashnod's Altar. He then drops another rock with a Worn Power Stone and passes turn. Mike loses 1 on his upkeep, drawing from the arena, and draws for turn. It then begins to rain dice, but Mike doesn't let it faze him. He casts a Crux of Fate, choosing the mode that destroys all non-dragon creatures, and sacrifices his Carrion Feeder once more to the Spawning Pit before the spell resolves. Ryan plays a Buried Ruins as his land for turn, and he casts Godo. This lets him go find an equipment card, and he finds Sword of War and Peace. He puts it onto the field and passes to Bree. Bree loses 1 to gain a fairy token in her upkeep to Bitter Blossom, and she casts Lyzolda in her main phase. Bree then plays an untapped Blood Crypt, taking 2, and taps 1 mana to invoke Ingot Chewer. And with the sacrifice trigger of Evoke on the stack, she sacrifices the poor little guy to Lyzolda, having her deal 2 to Mike, and destroys the Sword of War and Peace. Dave plays a snow-covered mountain and casts Homura in his main phase. He passes to Mike, who at the end of turn makes a spawn token from the pit. Mike loses 1 in his upkeep, drawing from the arena, and Dave pays 1 to draw from the Mind's Eye trigger. Mike then plays a Bojuka Bog to double exile Bree's graveyard, really driving the point home. He casts a Solemn Simulacrum and goes to find a swamp. Mike then passes. Ryan plays a mountain and equips Godo with the Sunforger. He swings Godo at Dave for 7, and then untaps him, moving to his second combat step where he swings Godo at Bree. In his second main phase, Ryan recasts Akiri and passes to Bree. Bree loses 1 on her upkeep to Bitter Blossom and gains a fairy, and in her main phase, she casts Chandra Flamecaller. She upticks her Planeswalker to gain 2 3/1 elementals with haste, and moves to combat. She swings both elementals at Ryan, and 1 fairy at Mike. This gives her a zombie for swinging at Mike, and Ryan blocks 1 of the elementals with Akiri, who has first strike, and takes 3. Dave plays a snow-covered mountain as his land for turn, and he casts Mass Mutiny, targeting Lyzolda, Godo, and the Solemn Simulacrum. Mike sacrifices the Solemn to the spawning pit and draws a card, while Dave gains control of the rest. He swings everything at Mike, but before damage is dealt, Ryan sacrifices his Strip Mine to destroy Dave's Spinerock Knoll. Mike blocks Homura with his spawn token, and takes 10 as Godo is still technically equipped with the Sunforger. Moving to the second combat step, Dave swings Godo once more at Mike for another 7. Dave then sacrifices a zombie token he gained for attacking Mike to pay for Lyzolda to sacrifice Godo and deal 2 to Mike. Dave then pays another 2 to sacrifice Lyzolda to deal a final 2 damage to Mike, and passes to Ryan. Ryan draws for turn, and Dave pays 1 to draw with his Mind's Eye. Ryan gears up Akiri with the Sunforger again, and plays a tapped Desert of the Fervent as his land for turn. Ryan then moves to combat, swinging Akiri at Dave for 7, which he takes. Bree loses 1 in her upkeep to the Bitter Blossom, gaining a fairy, and she plays a swamp in her main phase. She then casts Ob Nixilis Reignited, and downticks the Walker to destroy Akiri. With the trigger on the stack, Ryan activates his Sunforger, detaching it from Akiri, and goes to find Boros Charm, casting it. He chooses the mode to have his permanents become indestructible, and Bree then moves to uptick Chandra once it resolves. She swings the 2 elemental tokens at Ryan and 2 zombies at Dave. Ryan blocks 1 of them with Akiri, taking 3, while Dave takes 4. Dave casts in the Web of War in his main phase, sacrificing Homura, who comes back as the legendary enchantment Homura's Essence, and a zombie token to help pay for the cost. Dave then drops a Beetleback Chief, who comes in with 2 1/1 Goblin tokens. These all get pumped by the Web of War, gaining +2/+0 and haste. Dave then casts Krenko, who also gets pumped and gains haste. He taps Krenko, gaining 4 more Goblin tokens, which also gain +2/+0 and gain haste. Dave then moves to combat, swinging everything at Bree, who blocks with her fairy tokens and still takes a total of 20 damage. In his second main phase, Dave sacrifices some of his goblins to help pay for Journeyer's Kite and a Gilded Lotus, and passes to Ryan. Ryan draws for turn, and he plays a mountain. He re-equips Akiri with a Sunforger, and then casts his other commander, Bruse. Ryan swings Akiri at Dave for 14, thanks to the double strike, and he also gains 14 life as well. Dave gets taken out with commander damage, and with nothing else, Ryan passes to Bree. Bree loses 1 in her upkeep, and gets a fairy token. Moving to combat, she swings her zombie tokens at Ryan, who blocks with Bruse and Akiri. In her second main phase, Bree downticks Chandra by 3 to deal 3 damage to all creatures on the board, but with the ability on the stack, Ryan activates and detaches his Sunforger. He goes into his library and finds Teferi's Protection, phasing out. Bree then casts a Hoarding Dragon, and Mike helps out the immersion of the game by placing his playmat over Ryan to really drive home that he's phased out. Bree goes to her library and exiles a Nim Deathmantle onto the dragon, and passes to Ryan. Ryan phases back in on his turn, and he re-equips the Sunforger onto Akiri. He activates it and attaches it to go and find Dispatch, exiling Bree's dragon as Ryan has Metalcraft active. He then needs only to re-equip it, and simply has to swing in to win the game. Game review time. So this was one heck of a slugfest, with a lot of the damage being dealt through combat, which is always fun to see. Mike got targeted very early, mainly because his leyline kinda stopped Dave from being able to flip his commander, and also messed with any of Bree's reanimation strategies. I was immensely impressed with Ryan's Sunforger package, and he used it perfectly, always having the answer he needed, and enough mana to be able to activate it. Until today, I was only familiar with the blue flip commander from Kamigawa, the one that's banned, you know? So when Dave told me he was playing a Homura deck, I knew I had to get it on camera. He and I had played a game before this off camera, and unfortunately this game didn't do his deck justice. With the amount of tokens he runs in his deck, it makes perfect sense to have a commander that flips into an Anthem, plus fire breathing. Bree's Lyzolda deck performed much better than it typically does on camera, and I have to think that she's shaking off some of the camera shyness finally. I thought responding to the evoke trigger with Lyzolda's ability was pretty spicy, and there were a lot of fun interactions. Please be sure to tune in every Monday and Thursday at 11 AM Eastern Standard Time for a guaranteed new video. You can also follow me on Twitter at MTGMudsta. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/mtgmudsta. And lastly, you can check me out when I stream at twitch.tv/mtgmudsta. This video is brought to you in support by my patrons. If you're looking for a way to help out the channel, please be sure to visit the link below. Thank you all for watching this video, and don't forget, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.